Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode here on African Confessions. The following story that you're going to be listening to, it comes from a translation of a message that I received. The translation, it reads like this: how are you? Can you please post my own story as hidden identity? My name is Tendai, not his real name, and I come from a very small village in Zim. So I crossed the border into South Africa with nothing but hope and a strong back, ready to build a better life for my family. I found work as a bricklayer in Johannesburg. I used to work each and every day, laying bricks and thinking that what I was doing was going to be appreciated. I thought that I was finally making it, until when this other man, he was a contractor. He then met me when I was working for this other white man. So this South African contractor, he then robbed me blind. This man told me that he was going to give me a lot of money because he had his own mansion, a double-storied house, and he wanted a builder, but he did not want to use his own staff. So we spoke with that man when my boss was not around. That was when I agreed for the money that he had promised me. Was a lot. That is what a black person will always do. They will promise you a lot of money, all for nothing. He was the kind of a man who would smile to you and then stab you in the back the moment that you turned around. I knew that I was an easy target since I was an illegal migrant with no papers, no rights. He knew that even if he was going to rob me, I could not go to the police, I could not speak up, I could not fight back. So when payday would come, he would give me excuses like he needs to go to the bank to sort out some issues with his bank because he was unable to withdraw the money that he can pay me. And now I was not working alone because I had hired other guys that had to assist me. Eventually the money never came. Days turned into weeks. The guy was still owing me. He kept on telling me that I had to work. At least it was an advantage because the moment that he was going to give me the money, it will be a lot of money and I will be able to return back home and do something with the money. But still he did not pay me. I confronted him once, but he just laughed and told me to go back to work if I wanted to keep my job. I felt helpless, I felt humiliated, and I was angry. I had no way to feed my family, no money to send back home. I knew that I could not let this go. I wanted him to pay for what he had done, but I did not know how until I remembered something back home. I remembered one of my uncle. So my uncle, when we were still growing up, we used to hear rumors that he was involved in a ritual murder and he had this other grinding mill at his house, those maize grinding mills, the only one in the village. So we used to hear stories that there were some young boys, when they woke up so early, going there with their maize grains, and when they arrived at my uncle's compound, they said that they saw a man without a head that was busy fixing that machine. And after that Tokoloshe that did not have a head had finished, that was when the Tokoloshe started digging and digging. It dug up its own head and forced the head on its own body. Then it disappeared. Those were the stories that we had when we were still growing up. So in our Shona language, we call it Chikwambo or Tokoloshe. I then thought of my uncle, so I returned back home. At that time, my uncle was no longer staying in the village, for he had made a lot of money through his gold mine. He was now staying in Harare. I went to him and I told him that there was a man in South Africa who was owing me a lot of money that could change my life. He then said that he had not spoken with his healer in a very long time, but he was just lying. The day that I arrived in Harare, 2 days before, he had just also came back from Mozambique. He did not want to go with me to Mozambique. Later on, he agreed. Then the following weekend, we went to Mozambique. When we went there, That was when I explained my situation to that Sangoma there. And he said that I was supposed to give him a portion of the money. And I said, indeed, I was going to do that. That was when I was given, it was just a small red cloth with a very small stick that was inside that red cloth. And I was told that the moment that I would arrive in Zim, I had to take some soil. And after I would have taken some soil, I had to go into the forest with a hunting knife. And then after I would have arrived in the forest, I had to position that hunting knife in such a way when I will be busy pooping, that hunting knife will be pointing directly in between my buttocks, so that when the feces will be coming out of my buttocks, the feces will fall directly on top of that hunting knife. That was what I did. And when I did that, when I was now returning back home, I then saw a baboon. This baboon was following me. The Sangoma had told me that if that happens, I was not supposed to be afraid. Later in the evening, my uncle was the one who helped me. We went to the graveyard, and then the baboon was waiting for us. I spoke with the baboon. It did not even respond. It was just scratching its back, scratching its hand, scratching its face, all over its body. All that it did was like, as I was busy giving it instructions, telling it that I wanted it to go to South Africa so that it can claim my money. And indeed, it turned around, then it started running. It ran until we could not see it anymore. We returned back to my uncle's house. When we returned back to my uncle's house, I then went to the village, and I waited and I waited. To my surprise, the man who had blocked me on WhatsApp, he then spoke with me. He said, "My friend, I have seen the thing that you have sent to me. Are you able to come and collect your money?" After my boss had sent me the money, that was when I returned to South Africa. When I was on my way returning back to South Africa, unfortunately, there was tragedy. I was arrested since I did not have a passport. And that Mozambican Sangoma had not told me that this baboon, it works with a time frame. There was a time that it had given to my ex-boss for him to give me my money. Otherwise, the baboon was going to punish him. So indeed, the baboon punished him by the time that I was still in prison. I regret the things that I did, because this man, his daughter right now is in a wheelchair. He lost his own sister because of this Tokoloshe. Because this Tokoloshe, it had its own time frame that it had been given by that Sangoma in Mozambique, that it was supposed to return back. And before it could return, it then ended up beating the sister, crippling the man's daughter whilst I was in prison. I honestly regret the things that I did to that man. When I came out of prison, I returned back home, spoke with my uncle. We did some other rituals, but they did not involve this baboon. There were other things, since he was helping me out so that I can start my own business. But that is my own confession, Brother Nashi. Dear listeners, right there was a message that was sent to me by one of our dear brother. Strange things indeed, they do happen in this world.